Welcome to the Sumter Speedway Show. I'm Kent Compton, along with Gary Liuzzo. Hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend and enjoyed all the festivities from the Iris Festival. Tonight, it's a show that we've been planning for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'll tell you what, even though we were supposed to be off, we have planned the show, and so we are going to run the show, and it is a very, very special show.
That's right. We've got some past promoters from years ago.
I mean, some great guys, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've really done a great job. Some of them kind of repeat themselves, too.
Yep, we also have past drivers coming in. And some drivers that have come in that raced in Daytona when it was still sand.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be talking about that. Plus all the past drivers, and we'll be just comparing the past promoters and what has changed between when they were there and today. So stick around, keep it right here on the Sumter Speedway Show.
It's May Mayhem at Stokes Craven. Save thousands on new Fords and Chryslers. Right now, Stokes Craven is offering unbelievable deals on select Ford Rangers, Expeditions, Explorers, and more. Plus, save thousands on 2002 Dodge Caravans, Neons, Chryslers, and Jeeps. Only at the Stokes Craven Auto Complex May Mayhem Super Sale. So for the best deals on new or used cars, come to the dealership that cares. Stokes Craven Auto Complex, I-95 and 261 in Manning.
Welcome to Heinz Furniture. After 3 decades of being in business, we are proud to announce something very exciting for our Sumter community and the surrounding Midlands. We are remodeling, so please excuse our mess and take advantage of our remodeling sale with savings up to 60% off on selected in-stock merchandise. This is a perfect opportunity to take advantage of our 38,000 square feet of quality home furnishings at extremely low prices. We have free financing plans available, plus also additional cash discounts. So come on into Heinz Furniture and visit with our professional and friendly staff and see why we are #1 in quality home furnishings.
Welcome back to the Sumter Speedway Show. I'm Kent Compton, along with Gary Liuzzo, and it's our very special show right after the Memorial Day weekend, of course, the Iris Festival, but it is also our Legend Show, and we've got a couple former promoters, Mr. Bobby Sisson and Mr. Bob Sharpe with us. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Hey, how do?
Good evening.
I hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend and enjoyed the Iris Festival.
Wonderful.
Well, let me ask you, gentlemen, a wonderful question here. Bob, we'll start off with you. What was it like to promote the Sumter Speedway when you were promoting it in the 70s, in the late 70s?
It was quite an experience, to be honest with you. I didn't really start promoting a racetrack because I wanted to be a race car promoter. I enjoyed racing as a participant myself, so if I remember correctly, it was Uncle Pete Kiker, as everybody called him, had the racetrack, and he became ill. And it appeared at that time there was no one to promote the racetrack. So I agreed to take over the lease for Sumter Speedway, so quite frankly, I'd have some place to race so I could race close to home. And so that's why I started promoting the racetrack. I had a lot more fun participating in the races than I did promoting them. Extreme amount of confusion sometimes on Saturday nights late trying to decide who finished first and who finished last, as you remember some of those times, Bobby, when you promoted the racetrack.
I think we still have that problem in the new millennium, too. So.
Wait a second.
But,
I think the scores do a fine job.
Oh, yeah, the scores do a wonderful job. There's never such a problem like that. No, never.
They're always right.
Yeah.
The first race I ever promoted, if I remember correctly, was in Thanksgiving weekend of 1976. And Jim Skinner was the scorer, who is still scoring at the racetrack today. I was racing in the race, and Jim had me scored finishing second place, and had some guys out of, I want to say, Hemingway finishing third. I felt like I'd finished second. In fact, I knew I'd finished second, but the guys from Hemingway felt like they had finished second. And the first place prize that night might have been, say, $700. Second place prize was $500. Third place prize was, say, $300. So we argued for about 2 hours, and we finally decided, I suggested to the guys from Hemingway's, I can't remember the name, they were good guys. So I'll tell you what, let's do. Second place is $500, third place is $300, that's $800. Let's flip a coin. Whoever wins the coin toss wins the money. They got together, yeah, we'll go along with that. I won the coin toss, and that's how I broke even that night.
Well, did you race when you were promoting the track?
Yes, I did.
Well, how did the other competitors feel about that?
You know, I don't know if they all were truthful with me. On the first night I promoted the track in 1977, I remember I won the race. Was racing a Camaro, and the rules back then said all parts on the race car had to be street legal or stock that you buy from the Chevrolet place. I put a bumper on the back of my Camaro that had holes in it. And somebody protested me and said that was an illegal bumper and I shouldn't get the money. Of course, I had the money in the pouch to pay off anyway, so I couldn't take it away from me. It just cost me $400 more. That was what first place was paying back in 1976. And I really don't remember how we resolved that thing. Probably got the shaft, the drive shaft. Is what most
Well, Bobby, you promoted it in late.
Well, I started in about '83. Bob was going to close the track. He was fed up with it. He was tired of aggravating with it. And, you know, he was racing. He was trying to race and promote at the same time. And him and Ricky Spencer kind of talked me into having a good time. They said, boy, there ain't nothing like this. And I figured I could get in free every Saturday night, eat free hot dogs and what have you. And I just knew I was going to have a ball. So my first race, the biggest mistake I made was inviting Robbie Evans out there from Adam. I just knew everything was going to be smooth. And that was the biggest disaster I ever had in my life. I mean, you talking about a mess. I had cars from Columbia. I had cars from all over, and didn't nobody know nothing. I mean, there wasn't nothing planned. I just opened the gates, and everybody just kind of showed up and
run what you
tried,
brung.
yeah, just tried to do. And I believe Slick Givens, Ed, and them was over that night. And of course, you know what that entails. Anytime they there, you got an argument after the race, no matter what. And usually with Bob and them, I mean, you know, Bob. One thing about Bob, he's the only driver I could go to and get an honest answer because he knew where I was at. I would slip around to him and I'd ask him, I'd say, Bob, what do you think about such and such, such and such? And he would tell me, and I could depend on him. The rest of them fellows, you can't believe them. You couldn't believe them. But Bob, I could always believe Bob. He would tell me the straight of it, no matter what. No matter what, he'd tell me the straight of it. And I've always respected him for that. Cause
I appreciate that, Bob.
them other boys, I swear, they'd lead me astray now.
Well, you expanded the track in 1988.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, you know, the track been there since '57, and these legends had raced on it, so to speak. Ralph Earnhardt and Lee Petty and all them boys had raced on it. And I wanted to extend it, but I didn't want to mess up the legendary part of it, which was the front straightaway, I reckon you'd call it. But we had to do something with the guardrails. Back then, we didn't have no guardrails around the track. Absolutely no safety precautions, and at that time, insurance was starting to really play a part. So we just had big dirt piles on the inside of the track, and people stand up on the dirt piles, and when you had a wreck, everybody would jump on the track, get on the track, and there'd be hammers and crowbars and lug wrenches and everything else on the track with them, see? And you just had a hard time there. And that race we seen Sunday, where the boy throws the helmet at the other driver, that used to happen constantly at the racetrack. You know, people bring extra helmets just so they could throw it. Because you didn't have windshields, didn't have no screens on the windshield. Yeah, I mean, it was something.
You know,
So it was dangerous. It was dangerous just being there. In fact, one thing sticks in my mind. One time on the back straightaway, we had a caution, and the cars were going around real slow, and Tim Holliday was leading, and these two fellows were drunk, and they were up on the edge of the track, and every time Tim would come by, they'd reach out and they'd hit at him, see. I'm serious. I mean, that's how close it was. And I just kind of stood there and watched them. I was right behind them. I didn't want to interfere with them too much. Anyhow, Freddie Truesdale comes up, and he starts a little allocation with them, and Tim stops his car, got out, and they beat up them two fellows. Tim got back in his car, and they kept on making laps. Now, I'm serious. It happened. I stood there and watched them.
Well, the track used to come up. Now, the concession stand, of course, had been torn down and rebuilt again, but that track used to come up right behind that concession stand, didn't it?
Right. See, we didn't have a concession stand in, no bathrooms, nothing over there. And on a good hot Saturday night, it was tough over there. It was tough just staying over there, you know. And so I built the concession stand because I knew I was going to lengthen the track. So I built the concession stand right on the back straightaway at that time. And so you could reach out and touch the cars, and they came by the concession stand just about. And we put up the concrete wall out front. And that either saved a bunch of cars or tore up a bunch of cars, depending on how you look at it. Because it used to be them old metal guardrails there, you know, these cars would get up on top of them and they'd tear up guardrails and tear up cars. You leave half your car there. And the concrete wall, I felt like it saved cars because it would at least leave them in one piece. Guardrails was my biggest problem out there. I mean, every Saturday night I hated to see a wreck because I knew Monday morning I was out there replacing guardrails. It was just a constant
Oh, we
problem.
still have that issue.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That issue doesn't change at all. No,
Well,
no,
Bob,
no.
let me ask you, over the years, the biggest change really has been the size of the track, but what other big changes have the track made that you have seen over the years?
As you say, I guess the biggest change to the track itself, it was enlarged probably from 1/4 mile to nearly a 3/8 mile, I guess you would say, several years ago. I remember the track before it was enlarged, I guess when Bobby was still the promoter. I thought the racetrack was better then. The straightaways maybe are a little bit longer, but really if you look at the racetrack now, there's really no straightaway on it. You're in almost like an eggshell running the car. I thought it was a lot more fun to drive. In fact, a little easier to pass when the track was the way it was before. I've seen a lot of changes in the race cars, the rules. When I first started, I believe the year was, it was 35 years ago, whatever year that was. Donna and I were riding to get here tonight, and I took her by a little place several blocks, and I said, that's where I bought my first race car. It was a 1950 Chevrolet, had the roll bars in it. I'm riding by in my pickup truck, and I saw a for sale sign on this old race car, and I stopped and I said, how much you want for the race car, buddy? He said, I'll take $150 for it. Now that was without a motor. So I scrounged up all I could, and it took me about 3 months to get a motor together and went racing. Now, some of these late model sportsman cars that you race today at Sumter Speedway are $40,000, $50,000 race cars. It doesn't make sense to put that much money in these race cars for the little amount of purse that you receive. But the cars, I guess, are really the biggest change. And tires, these track tire rules. I think that's something. We shouldn't have tire rules. You put that much money in a race car, you should be able to put a good racing tire on your race car to be able to race it. The tires you buy, these track tires, they're just they're not satisfactory for a real race car, in my opinion.
That's not my department. So. Well, do you still have your late model cars?
I still have two of those money makers. I still have them locked up in the shop.
Well, you were having I can't think of the boy's name that was driving your car last year.
Darren Griffin drove my car.
Darren.
As a matter of fact, I believe he won one of the races.
He did.
The was it a Have a Tampa race we're having last year? I think he had some bad luck on the first lap and bent it up a little bit. I haven't seen it since it was wrecked. It's still out at Jake Timmons' shop, but I think I still have two race cars anyway.
Well, we hope you'll come back and be racing out there again real soon.
Gosh, you never can tell.
Well, we just hope you do. We miss you out there because
Well,
we keep looking for that white and black 14.
Well,
Yep.
thank you. I had some very, very enjoyable times at Sumter Speedway.
Well, Bobby, did you get a chance to come out at all?
Well, my priorities went to the mountains. And I built a house up there, and so that's all that needs to be said, you know. That takes all the time.
Well,
Well-
could you take us with you when we're not running one weekend?
Yeah, it's nice and cool up there.
But for the record, Bobby said he took the racetrack over in 1983. I think it was 1979. I believe you took it over.
I didn't think I had it that long.
Uh,
I didn't think I
It's
enjoyed
Joe
anything.
Lavender. Joe Lavender had it in 80.
Well, I just need to thank Bobby for one thing,
Yes.
and that is putting that new tower up.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember
Yeah.
the old one that was all
Yeah.
open in the dirt, but the new one with air conditioning, we
Yeah.
like it, don't we?
Oh, you betcha, you betcha. All right, we've had our legendary drivers with us, or I should say legendary promoters, I should say. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll have our legendary drivers. I'd like to thank Mr. Bobby Sisson and Mr. Bob Sharpe for joining us on this very special Legends Sumter Speedway Show.
Sumter Napa Auto Parts invites you to visit them at their new location on Broad Street, now open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Select from Sumter's largest auto parts inventory. Napa has parts for small engines and outboards to tractors, heavy-duty trucks, imports, and domestics. And Napa has a complete auto machine shop. You will receive fast, dependable delivery service. All Napa quality parts are backed by Napa's national warranty. Good at any of their 6,600 Napa locations across the United States. Be sure to ask about our convenient Napa charge card. Sumter's Napa Auto Parts, now at our new location, 530 Broad Street. New extended hours, same great service.
Jones Chevrolet in Sumter, South Carolina's used car giant, takes the worry out of buying a pre-owned vehicle with our GM certified pre-owned vehicles. These vehicles go through a rigorous 108.5-point inspection and come with a 3-month, 3,000-mile factory warranty. And now get super low 7.9% financing on a sensational selection of GM certified pre-owned vehicles. So for your next pre-owned vehicle, buy with confidence guaranteed at Jones Chevrolet in Sumter, South Carolina's used car giant.
Welcome back to the Sumter Speedway Show. I'm Kent Compton, along with Gary Liuzzo, and it's our very special edition of the Sumter Speedway Legends. And with us, we have two legendary drivers, Mr. Bob Sharpe with us, and of course, Mr. Billy Baker, who was really the first track champion at the Sumter Speedway. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
We appreciate you coming out and joining us this evening.
Glad to join you.
You were the first track champion at the Sumter Speedway.
Possibly, I don't know. I was champion a few years.
Well,
for sure.
that was 1957. And, well, who were some of the other drivers back then when you were racing?
Charlton McLeod, Bobby Lee, Slick Gibbons, H.C. Pritchett. There's quite a few. I can't remember them all. They're getting a little old now.
Well, you had a chance to race down at Myrtle Beach in the sand before they built the Super Speedway. What was it like racing in the sand?
You talking about Daytona?
I mean,
right?
Daytona. What did they say? Myrtle Beach?
Myrtle Beach.
That's okay.
I was thinking, well, I had the beach on the mind. I'm sorry, Daytona. Yes.
Yeah,
sir.
we bought a car from Bobby Griffin, and it was a factory car. They were trying to outrun the Hemi Chrysler, so Oldsmobile was into the racing very much. So a bunch of the Oldsmobile people went down to win the Daytona race on the beach. So I went to Lansing, Michigan, and picked up a Oldsmobile and drove it back here, and then carried it on to the beach and entered it and qualified about 115, which was a flying mile at that time. But it was a lot of fun, and we run the pavement and then on the beach, and it was sort of wild, especially when a country boy fixed his car up like he didn't know what he was doing. It was wild because the airlifts at that time, you were supposed to put about 2 pounds more in the right front. And I was smarter than the airlift people, so I put about 7. And the car would go down the pavement, down the stretch, just hitting it, you know. And you had to hold it wide open, so you just hanging on. But we ran good until it blew, and I put an extra quart of oil in the engine, and it sucked the pan, you know, Bob, that used to be under the intake, sucked it down in there. But I qualified right next to Fireball, and was running right behind Fireball.
Oh, we done.
We had a lot of fun.
You've also raced at Darlington, too.
Yeah. Finished 22nd legally, but I know I finished quite a bit better because there was about 78 cars started that year.
Good golly.
And we ran a good, consistent race, but we didn't have but one scorekeeper. And you know, when you got 78 cars out there, the chances are one person can't keep up with that car all day long.
That's true.
So
I disagree.
I got credited. I got credited for 22nd.
Well,
But I feel sure I finished real good, nowhere near winning.
finished in the top 25.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I finished
That's
in
a
the top
typical
10.
driver, though. Typical driver never
Right.
finishes where he's going.
Okay, Bob, I need to ask you, we're hoping you come back and join us as a driver real soon. And what was the last race you ran here at Sumter?
Let's see. This is 2002. I guess it was 2000, I believe.
Was that the Thanksgiving race?
No, I believe I ran a few races the following year, so maybe it was 2001. No, I'm sorry. Year before last was the last race that I
2000.
ran.
Yeah,
2000.
2000. Well, we remember the Thanksgiving race where we had both the wedge cars and the, as they say, Have a Tampa cars, and you passed little Ed going into turn 1 right there. I mean, you just saw the hole and took it right then and there. That was an amazing shot. And I mean, you just went on ahead and won that race.
Yeah, I caught the boys napping a little bit that night, as they say sometimes. I couldn't quite keep up with Ed, and I believe one of the Mintz boys was running second. I was running maybe 4 or 5 car lengths behind in third, and we were lapping some traffic, and I saw Ed trying to pick the best way to go, but when he stopped and thought, I saw a slight little hole, and I went by him in 1 and 2. I don't believe he even had a chance to scratch the side of his car when I went by, but I got by. that was a big win for the old man, I guess they would have said that night, the 57-year-old getting a chance to outrun the 35-year-old. So I enjoyed that night. He is a great race car driver, though, and race fair and clean, and I'm always proud of him every time he wins a race. His father was a great race car driver. I'm sure you remember Slick Billy. I was looking at some of Billy's literature before tonight. I think in 1958, Slick finished 5th in a late model race that you won that night, or maybe 57. Now Slick is younger than I am, but he started racing. Gosh, he must have been what, 15 years old, Billy?
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah.
About the size of a 15-year-old anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's matter of fact, Bobby Wellerly probably started all of us to racing in our area. But you know, we go way back to the old track. What they call the old track out here?
Bethel.
The old Bethel track.
Yeah.
First race I saw in Sumter, South Carolina, in 1955 at the old Bethel racetrack.
Well, that still comes out, and I know years ago Slick used to come out, but I haven't seen Slick out there in a while.
Well, Slick, I ran into Slick, it was last week, as a matter of fact, and he's basically going where Ed races. Of course, Ed's doing the Carolina Clash series, but he's not doing it full time because I saw him, and he says he wants to spend more time with his son, who's starting his racing career.
Right.
So Ed's just basically, I guess, passing the torch on to his son.
Is that career in cars or karts?
I think it's go-karts. I think he's building it up like Ed did, start off with go-karts.
Ed was a go-kart man.
And working his way up, because his son, I believe, what, 11, 12, somewhere in there?
Probably so, yeah. Maybe older than that. Maybe in his early teens now.
Yeah,
I'm past his
you could have all gone all day without saying that. You know that, don't you, Bob?
That's right.
Well, you drive the number 14. How long have you been using that number 14?
Let's see, I think I raced, if I remember correctly, for 34 years, and, 35 years. The first year I raced number 15, and the second year, 14 was available, and I started racing number 14. I picked number 14, if you remember, a quarterback, you probably remember, Billy, Otto Graham, that played for the Cleveland Browns. That was my favorite football team. They always had white uniforms. I always liked the white uniform. And he was my favorite quarterback. He wore 14, so that's how Bob Sharpe picked up the number 14 during his racing career.
It's really interesting how different drivers pick up these numbers. We've had some that said, well, it was my uncle's number, or we had some that have some meaning to them. And
Well, did you put any Cleveland Brown colors on your car? Or, that brown or that orange?
First race car that I had, it was number 15 because someone that year was racing number 14, so I couldn't acquire that number of the year. But it was a dark brown. It was probably about the color. Probably the TV audience can't see that table. It was the ugliest color in the world. But then I went to a baby blue, and I think I've had red race cars, but I guess my favorite is white. It just seems to be a cleaner looking color on the racetrack at night when the lights are shining on. So
It makes a nice looking car.
Well, Mr. Baker, I need to ask you, when going from dirt track racing and then all of a sudden you're going into asphalt racing in Darlington, what was the difference between the two back when you were driving?
Well, really, Darlington was probably just, in other words, we were just doing a little bit of dirt track racing, but Darlington was one of the first races I ran, right out. That was one of the first races I ran, dirt or whatever.
And how many years did you race at Darlington?
Just one.
Just the one?
Just one. I tried to race in 1950, but I couldn't qualify. I bought a Plymouth exactly like Johnny Mance won the race with, and couldn't qualify.
So
I hate to tell the public, but we didn't qualify but 78 mile an hour and 52.
That's pretty good speed back then, though.
But I ran a good, consistent 7. They had the carburetor messed up, so it wouldn't run, but about 78 anyway, you know, all the way around the track. It would flutter and cut off. But I ran a good 70-some miles an hour all day and never blew a tire and ran a good, consistent race. That's the reason I always think I had a pretty good finish.
Oh, that's good.
That's great.
Well, we thank you, gentlemen, for coming out and joining us this evening.
I really enjoyed it.
With our Legends drivers here at the Sumter Speedway Show, or I should say here on the Sumter Speedway Show. And we hope to see you out at the track real soon. Bob, we hope to see you on the track real soon. I mean, we miss you, buddy. We really
Thank
miss
you.
you.
Just being here.
Well, and we hope to see you at the Sumter Speedway Show, of course, this Saturday night. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Sumter Speedway Show.
We're there when you need us, securing your yesterdays, todays, and tomorrows, because you have more important things to think about.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. What do you say we go after that big fish today?
Providing life, home, car, and business insurance, and multiple policy discounts. To design a program that's right for you, call your independent auto owner's agent.
Bynum Insurance of Sumter, 1170 Wilson Hall Road.
Welcome back to the Sumter Speedway Show. I'm Kent Compton along with Gary Liuzzo. And Gary, it was great to have Bobby and, of course, Bob Sharpe here, Billy Baker.
It was great to have them all here tonight.
Yeah,
It was exciting to be with those gentlemen.
And hear the stories of the Sumter Speedway. And I mean, just over the years, just amazing the things that have gone with good old-fashioned Southern stock car racing.
There's a lot of history with that track.
A lot of history with that track, and we hope the history just keeps right on trucking.
Right.
Yeah, and of course,
what about our trivia question?
our trivia question. Well, we're going to just continue it.
That's right.
Yeah, we've had a few answers, some of them correct, and we'll throw all the correct answers into a hat. But if you think you know the answer to our trivia question, all you have to do is go to the website www.sumterspeedway.com. Right there on the main page, it says TV show. So all you have to do is just answer the question. Now, what was the question?
The question is give us one driver that won the points championship from last year.
In any class.
Any
Late
class,
model,
doesn't
pure,
matter.
Pure stock, street stock, just
Any class.
Any class. Any class. Just give us the points champion. And who knows, you could possibly win that dinner from Ward's Barbecue and a pair of tickets to the grandstand. Make sure you join us this Saturday night at the Sumter Speedway. We'll be kicking it back in. And, of course, next week right here on
The Sumter Speedway Show.